Are you trapped in endless scroll? Have you looked at the clock and it's 2 a.m. and you have no idea where the time went? Feeling like your brain is melting from the sheer volume of content you're consuming? Well, welcome to Decisions That Count. This is the podcast where we unpack the science of decision fatigue, or maybe as you know it, brain rot. In this episode, we're going to dive deep into the algorithmic rabbit hole to understand how digital platforms are hijacking your decision making. You're going to learn, hopefully, how to break free from that doom scroll by understanding some of the physiological effects of digital overload. And hopefully, we can help you discover some strategies to regain some control and get your decision making back. So I'm your guide and your host, Dr. Shawn Watson. I'm a neuroscientist, entrepreneur, and I've spent the last number of years researching and talking to people about decision fatigue. Personally, I know firsthand how it can derail even the most driven individuals. I've battled my own cognitive overload while trying to build my business and suffered from decision fatigue every day still. This is why I've become passionate about sharing with you the science of better decision making and how we can look at decision fatigue in our own life and try to mitigate its effects.
And I'm Michelle. I'm so excited to be here with Shawn and our incredible guest today. We have a truly exceptional guest. He is a leader who navigates the complex world of digital content across Asia Pacific, a visionary who understands the power of human-centric strategies, and someone who's passionate about helping people build meaningful careers. Please can I welcome to the podcast, Tim Lindley. Tim, your achievements across media and entertainment industry are really impressive. And so, yeah, I'm personally really excited to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So look, let's get straight into it today. Last year, Oxford Dictionary termed brain rot word of the year. And I've kind of got the definition here. And they said brain rot is a slang term that refers to the mental fatigue that can result from consuming excessive amounts of low-quality online content. And it's often used to describe the effects of social media, binge watching, and doom scrolling. Tell us more.
Well, we can debate low quality. We can debate low quality. That's an interesting piece to dig into. But yeah, I don't think there's any denying that for the vast majority of people in developed markets with access to content such as TikTok, Instagram, everything else that comes with it, then it's very easy to get stuck into a doom scroll. You're in there, you're scrolling through content, there's more, it never ends. But I think this is perpetuated over recent years with the algorithms getting better and better at understanding what you want to engage with, finding more that fits the bill, continuing to serve it to you. They get better at hooking you into the platform, you spend a lot of time, and then maybe at some point there's a trigger to jump you out of it. But I think, yeah.
So this is when you spend hours scrolling and you all of a sudden kind of come out of it, step away from the device, and you're like, oh God, how much have I just consumed in a short space of time or even a long space of time? And you just feel like your brain is not functioning. Is this what we're talking about when we say brain rot?
I think that sounds like the brain rot piece. I think the doom scroll, I don't know whether people are conscious. I don't know where it's like you come out and you suddenly feel, hey, what was I doing? Like it's enjoyable to many people. You do it, you get in there, there's a reason you're doing it, you're enjoying it, you feel the content is good, relevant, there's a reason why you keep engaging, and then something pulls you out of it. Maybe you think, okay, that's enough. Maybe you have to go somewhere. Maybe just close that up and move to the next one. Like, okay, let's do the same thing somewhere else. So, yeah, I think that's the cause. It's capturing an extraordinary amount of attention. Brain rot, seems to be the word that's coined with the effects of such activity.
Yeah, I think the only thing for me is I don't think it's, from your definition, or Oxford's, I suppose they said mental fatigue. I don't think it's mental fatigue. I think it's decision fatigue. I think when people are engaging with this content, because everything in social media nowadays you interact with, right? It's not like a TV that we just watched an advertisement before, right? With no decisions. Every content on TikTok, as an example, is you can interact with, right? Even if the interaction is switching the video. But then you can interact, you can, like, share, all those other things. So I think brain rot is just after so many decisions that are being made, micro decisions, but thousands of them, your brain just has this fog from decision fatigue, essentially.
So what's the difference between decision fatigue and mental fatigue?
Yeah, it's an important distinction. Mental fatigue is usually described as that feeling of being tired, So wakefulness, right? And I know, like, after talking to you, I actually got TikTok, and yeah, after scrolling for an hour, like, I'm not physically tired, but my brain is experiencing something. And mental fatigue is that tiredness. Decision fatigue is what happens to our brain over a period of time when we make lots of decisions, so just a sheer number of decisions, or even a few decisions that are very emotionally costing for us. So in situations of stress and anxiety, you can get decision fatigue quite quickly. But I think the thing with doom scrolling is you're just making so many micro decisions. Like, I bet you an hour for me for like Reddit or something like that, I'm probably making hundreds or thousands of decisions. And our brain isn't designed to handle that many decisions. And this is decision fatigue. So it's very, very separate from mental fatigue. Tim, I got a question for you to double click. So what's been the change in this type of, short form video content? How are our companies now? How are these systems or the algorithms designed? Because you say, like, keep you interested, keep you hooked.
Yeah.
Is that different from 10 years ago? Like,
I think there was always an intent to keep you hooked from a platform perspective. If you're a TikTok or Meta or whoever you are, your business model hinges around keeping people on your platform, getting more people on your platform to stay there for longer, to engage with more, right? Kind of more opportunity to then serve you advertising, whatever the business goal might be, right? You're the fuel. So the platform wants you there. They need to create an experience that keeps you there. The biggest shift over the past few years is that when Facebook, and I mean, you go back to wherever you want to go. You want to go back to MySpace, you want to go back to Friendster, you want to go, how far back do you want to go? I don't know who listens to this. But you go back to the concept of social networking, and it was creating connections based on who you knew, like a social graph, drawing lines between the three of us. We know each other. We might be friends on MySpace, and it would connect us because you have that in common. Right? You move that forward to Facebook. Facebook turned that incredibly mainstream, made it much more sophisticated, grew across a whole bunch of different markets, a bunch of different audiences. It went down into universities, everything else. So but that was a social graph. That was assuming that if you liked a piece of content, you could show that same piece of content to me because I know you, and they think that I'm going to like it because you like it, right? There's logic to that, but it's a bit crude. The modern algorithms work on an interest graph. Like, they've cracked how to understand what you engage with and what the signals are from that. So they go, well, cool, you like this, you might like this. So it's no longer relying on who you're connected to. And they typecast you, or they stereotype you. It's like, this is you. We understand you. The signals that are coming off your behavior tells me that you like this kind of content. Hey, there's a bunch of those similar signals coming off this person over there. Maybe the content that they like is going to appeal to you. Let's try that. And the signals are so immediate. Like you say, you can comment, you can share, you can watch it again. You can watch it 15 times on loop. You can skip it. You say, I don't want it. So, and there's so many other pieces of kind of feedback that the algorithm can get from the user. You zoom in on a picture. Okay, there's something in there I'm interested in, you zoom in. Well, that's not a like or a comment or a share that is racking up some kind of forward-facing like metric that everyone can see, but it's a signal back to the algorithm that some kind of interest. So it's drawing all of these things and then synthesizing that information to understand what to serve you next. And there's an extraordinary amount of content out there to be served. So the difference between that social graph and interest graph is it's no longer about assuming that I'm like you because I know you, therefore I'll watch the same stuff. There's going to be a much lower hit rate with that kind of recommendation. Now it's really understanding, well, based on your patterns of behavior and similar patterns of behavior, I think this piece of content is going to appeal to you. Serve it to you. If it does, great, serve you more. The moment they get negative signals, like you skip past the video, great, that goes back into the algorithm, it learns immediately. And this is happening at such scale that those algorithms learn incredibly quickly. And they're able to distribute pieces of content widely, very, very quickly as soon as they come up, without anybody needing to have a load of followers. You're in an age where you could start a TikTok account tomorrow with 0 followers, and your content would still find an audience if it was great. I guess the algorithm is analyzing that content, going, cool, seen this before. We know this type of thing. We got an audience for this. Let's serve it to them. First 10 people engage with it. Great, good sign. Send it to 10 more. They engage with it. Great, really good sign. Keep giving it to more and more. Expand the field. Give it to more people. You continue getting signs that people are engaging with it. Amazing. Keep it up. That's how things go viral. Mm-hmm. It cools off. People stop engaging with it. Okay, we've gone too far. We've gone outside of the audience that this is relevant to. Maybe this then cools off. It starts tailing off. And then you have this ability to just find things that are relevant to you, which starts carving people up into different groups. And we can talk about that, but it keeps you hooked. You have an endless supply of content that is deeply relevant to you. So you talk about doom scrolling as a bad thing, and maybe it is, but in a different view, someone's enjoying that endless stream of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about low quality content, maybe, but let's define low quality. Like, what does that mean in the context of scientific definition of decision fatigue? What causes it? Fair enough. Maybe there's a definition. In a context of, is someone enjoying this content? Probably, because they're continuing to engage with it, continuing to consume it. So then the subjectivity around what's high quality, what's low quality, changes completely.
Right.
If you're able to engage someone, well, someone's going to choose to engage with your piece of content. They might even send it to their friend. They become an amplifier. I don't think that's low quality anymore.
Can I challenge you on this enjoying it thing? Because when I look at myself, my own behaviors, when I'm scrolling, I would say I enjoy 20% of the content that I'm consuming. The rest is I am looking for another piece of content. So like I'm sometimes watching like average stuff, like out of habit, out of boredom, out of waiting to get another hit of something that I do find entertaining. So it's like, and what ends up happening is like after a period of doom scrolling or whatever we want to call it, is I actually come away and gone, oh God, I'm so frustrated with myself for just wasting my time watching a load of like poor quality content. And I'm actually more frustrated with myself when I think, God, I could have actually watched a full episode of something that was really high quality, or I could have listened to a podcast where I would have actually got so much more out of it. And it's, for me, it's less about like enjoying that and more about just habit and triggers and things that they put in place to make it addictive.
I think you're right. But two things are true. That's true for you. More than two things are true. Right? It's also the opposite is true for someone else. Something in the middle is true for someone else. There's lots of different cohorts of people. And you zoom out from this and think, I wish I'd spent that time doing something else, doing something more productive or something more worthwhile, whatever you view to be more worthwhile. There's almost certainly a cohort of people who go, I really enjoy that. This is my daily entertainment. I look forward to it. So I think that will vary.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, though, because I guess from an addiction perspective, like if you're designing an addiction algorithm, you want to have like that hit and then a downturn as you hunt for the next hit, and then you get it, right? Just like in a casino, you want to make sure that when people lose money, then they win the lottery and then they're back for a while, right? I guess we don't need to ask the question if that's in the algorithm, like the addiction component of how to reward to content they love. But it is a very interesting point about it, right? Because you're seeking that next thing.
Exactly.
Right?
You know, you're on Instagram stories and you're just going, okay, oh, that was a really good story. Click. And you might do like, honestly, like 20 or 30 passes before you get another piece that you're willing to watch or willing to take the time to. Like it's there's that addictive.
But every pass is giving that feedback to the algorithm of maybe that wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
At that moment in time, whatever it might be, that wasn't quite right. But then you landed on something. That's a strong signal to go, okay, this is right. So then the next piece of content it can serve to you can be fine-tuned based on that piece of information that they've only just got. So then hopefully the next piece is more relevant.
But what's wild is that every single pass is a decision. And
and the speed of it.
And I haven't thought about that before we started working together, that I was like, actually, you know, you whether you're making the decision to stay and watch something, and then if you want to Zoom or engage or with that piece of content, it's fine. But then I'm, you know, within seconds of like skipping all of those stories, I'm making 30, 40 decisions within seconds because I'm going, no. Okay, I'll sit and watch this. And then throughout watching that video, you're making decisions every second to continue to watch that piece of content rather than to skip on. Like it's a wild number of decisions. Like in 5 minutes on social media, you could have made hundreds of decisions.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I guess, I mean, for you, Tim, like it seems like every single thing's getting more compressed now. So it's like short form video content. Like everything seems to get shorter and shorter. Is that just a result of our society, you think, changing? Like I know there's crazy people like Michelle who will listen to videos at like 2 times speed, right? Just because he has to get through it faster. Like is this short form content, is this kind of the sweet spot, do you think, however many seconds it is to like get feedback, get a strong signal before you move to the next thing? Because to Michelle's point, when it's all compressed like this too, you're making so many decisions. It's not like a movie when you sit and just watch, right? Like, So what's the attention span like? Do you think that's changing, or is this just human nature? Is it the same humans today as it was 20 years ago? Like,
it's a great question. I don't know if it's a sweet spot. I suspect it will continue to change and evolve further. It's certainly true that when you're consuming so much in such a compressed period of time, the amount of signal that comes off that behavior that can train an algorithm is just exponentially larger than it was before. If you take something like YouTube Core versus YouTube Shorts, all right, kind of long form YouTube can still learn a lot about you. Right? You can sit and watch something like podcast. You can watch this podcast on YouTube, right? You can watch an hour. You could scrub back over certain bits. You could fast forward through things. You could comment. You could read the comments. You can go to the next video. There's a bunch of signal that the algorithm can learn. But that's, I don't know, let's say that's 5 pieces of information in an hour that it gets. That same hour, if you spent the whole time on YouTube Shorts, 1 centimeter away on your screen, however many pixels like to the right on a different tab, you're in Shorts. And then you're into this behavior of fast scrolling. And yeah, as you say, the first second of any short form video is the most important part of it. The first second, maybe the sound in that first second, the visuals, very like everything. Like the text you see on the screen, the text you see in captions, the visual imagery and movement of the video itself, the sound that you hear, like all of that in the first second, or probably less, is going to probably play the single biggest factor in determining whether you're going to watch that. Then you have to continue to want to watch it. Like the art, there's a real science and an art about making a great short form video to attract your attention, get you to watch it in the first place, and then to get you to keep watching it.
mm-hmm.
Then they want you to watch it again, because that's also good. That's a signal. Like, oh, they watched it twice. It's kind of views are starting to rack up. It's feeding the algorithm with, this is good stuff. Keep serving it to more people. So everyone wants that. Creators want that. Platforms want it. It's a good sign. It's keeping you on the platform. You're not exiting. So everyone's incentivized, apart from possibly the end user. But like everyone's incentivized to keep you on there for as long as possible. So there's real engineering that goes into it. And there's absolutely a whole bunch of psychological PhDs in these platforms that are figuring out exactly where to put that button, exactly what color and what density of shade of gray that outline of the heart should be here. Like all of that stuff I'm sure is happening as well to keep platforms sticky.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so much of it comes down to the relevance of the content. But yeah, sweet spot or not, I don't know. I think there's a human desire to do more. So if you're presented with an opportunity to achieve more in a shorter period of time, you're wired for maximum output, minimum effort. Like it's so you'll seek that out. Like naturally, you'll seek that out, and it's quite difficult to fight that. So if you're presented with an opportunity to consume a piece of information in 10 seconds versus have to watch an hour-long video, and you start seeing the same kind of patterns coming with the emergence of AI-driven GPTs. You take a ChatGPT or a Gemini, it can replace 500 Google searches with one contextual Gemini search. You ask Gemini for something, you prompt it in the right way, it's going to go find that information, but it's not just going to say, I found it. It's like it'll synthesize it in the form that you want it to synthesize. It'll spit that out. You can even tell it what format you want it out in. So whereas before, maybe you had to do multiple Google searches, click through a whole bunch of different links. You're adding context each time. You're going, oh, okay, now I need to add this to the thread. It takes you a long time to build that stream of information and contextualize it, synthesize it down to something usable.
Mm-hmm.
So the technology, I think, is coming at you in many, many different ways. Short form video is one. That is just, it's compounding that everyone's looking to do more in a shorter period of time.
Even their entertainment.
Yeah. And it's an odd concept, right? Because you feel like, I'm looking to be entertained. That's a leisure activity. And leisure, you kind of go, okay, well, like maybe do you associate that with relaxation, with downtime, but yet you still fall victim to the, I want to do more in the same amount of time or in a compressed period of time.
So funny you just say that they're doing more in a compressed period of time. So yes, I do listen to all my podcasts on double speed. But actually, I've even recently been wanting to do that with long form video content as well. So we were watching Wolverine and Deadpool. Terrible movie. Big fan of the characters, but just terrible movie. I remember just sitting there and just thinking, God, I just want to speed this up. Maybe if I just put it on like 1.25, 1.5x, like, I don't know.
At what point would you just be like, I'm just going to stop the movie and ask Gemini to sum it up in 4 sentences, right? Like there has to be this like minimum. I know it's maybe more psychology and human nature.
But I think that's what short form video does.
Yeah.
Is it takes out the pieces that you feel like, okay, well, let's summarize this. And it's not necessarily looking to summarize the story true to how the story was told. It's just trying to take bits out that it feels you're going to engage with.
Mm-hmm.
In theory, you could. Right? You go, okay, let's rewrite the movie in 15 seconds. What are the 3 scenes you have to see to understand the essence of the movie? Then if you expand that out, what are the 5 scenes you need to see to make it big? What's the 10? I think you could play with that, but that's kind of what short form video is doing. It's taking the moment or moments that are things you're going to engage with the most, or things that are most relevant or the most shareable, and putting it out as a separate piece of content.
But then I think is my attention broken? I can't sit through, I can't listen to a podcast on normal speed now. I can't sit and watch a movie without either using a second screen or wanting to speed it up.
But you've been rewired, because you've now learned that you can achieve the same outcome in a shorter period of time. So you think you can. Maybe you can't, but you think you can. This isn't my example. It's a Rory Sutherland example. I'm going to shamelessly steal it. But the concept of the hot tap, the kettle tap, or whatever it's called, the boiling water tap. And it's like versus a kettle. The boiling water tap will take maybe 2 seconds to think, and then it will come on into boiling water. You make yourself a cup of tea in a few seconds. Suddenly you need to wait 3 minutes for a kettle to boil, and you think it's 8. You're like, I'm waiting years. You're waiting 3 minutes. You were waiting 3 minutes before you had that tap. Didn't matter. But you're very, very quick to rewire around something becoming easier. And then you never want to go back to it being harder or taking longer.
What's interesting to me though is then you're seeing for watching a movie or whatnot, like that enjoyment or entertainment, it's something you need to get done and you want to get it done faster. Like it kind of misses the point of entertainment to some degree though, right? Or like relaxation. And for me too, after we spoke, before this, and I actually downloaded TikTok, and what blew my mind actually is just it hits so many different things with your attention. So if you watch a movie, like a Marvel movie, it's like action and excitement, right? But TikTok, it'll be like my TikTok feed's like how it's made. So I can see how they weld 2 pipes together, which is kind of cool. And then the next scene is like some science thing. And then it's like basketball, and then it's ice hockey. And then it's just hitting every different thing. And it is crazy addictive because it's just like all different aspects of entertainment is in one short form content, and you're just getting hit with different things. But yeah, the shocking thing to me is just from this discussion too, is entertainment just a period of time that's the outcome you just need to get it done? And I'm asking you to fast forward movies, right? Because then you're done the movie faster. Now what?
I think maybe it's just that that particular movie, I wasn't getting what I wasn't really enjoying it. I was just a bit like, oh God, this is just like fight scene after fight scene. There wasn't much of a story behind it. Whereas, I'm a huge Grey's Anatomy fan, and I've been watching the new season of Grey's Anatomy, and I will sit
Season 78.
Almost, yeah. The amount of days of my life I've lost the Grey's Anatomy, but it's so good, no regrets. And so, but yeah, I'll sit and then really kind of watch every episode and really enjoy it and kick everybody out of the living room so I can really concentrate on it and really get into it. So I think it just depends on the content. Mm-hmm. And whereas podcasts are more, I want to know what the key takeaways are. I'm normally doing it when I'm driving or walking the dog or running. So having it on double speed, that makes it more efficient because there's a job to be done with it. I want to learn from it. So it's a different form of content.
But that's also the context in which you're using it. Mm-hmm. So that's you. And I think back to that idea of don't assume everyone's like you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's so many different cohorts of people out there who would all listen to that same podcast. But why they're listening to it might be very different, and how they listen to it. They might want to listen to it, might want to watch it. I want to watch it on YouTube, I want to see it. They might want to watch it in little bits, 5 minutes at a time in between things, and I want to watch it all in one go. They might want to listen to it. They might want to listen to it on double speed. They might want to listen to it on half speed because they're trying to keep up, taking notes. They might want to read it. They go, I can't do podcasts. I like reading. Audio doesn't work for me. People are different. What technology is doing and what short form video has successfully done is unite an extraordinarily large group of people around this type of content consumption and make it very, very mainstream. They've also, this shift to the interest graph means that the creative finds its targeting. Mm-hmm. You used to have to build massive followings. in order to be able to distribute anything. Or you had to put a load of media money behind something in order to distribute it, to buy your way through the distribution. Now, a single TikTok, and we could launch a channel right now, 0 followers. And as long as we created a great TikTok, it would find an audience. I don't know how quickly it would go viral, but it's been done. There've been many examples of TikToks going viral where the creator had next to no followers, because the algorithm is looking to distribute great content, great as defined by the audience. The algorithm is just the audience. Mm-hmm. I think everyone thinks it's incredibly complicated, and yes, okay, it is the code that sits behind it. The technology, yeah, sure. Like, that's complicated, it's nuanced, it's learning, it's teaching itself. But it's just a reflection of the audience. Because if you don't engage with a piece of content, then the algorithm looks at it and goes, cool, you didn't like it. So that gets a no. If you did engage with it, it gets a yes. It's kind of that simple.
I guess the good part with it, if I hear you right, then like it really does reward quality content. However you define quality, yes. it does reward relevant content, I would say, because quality starts getting, you're right, like in the way you're saying it, you're right, but I would say relevant is probably a term that resonates a little bit more with how kind of people usually use the word, because quality starts putting you into these really subjective areas. Some people, even the entertainment conversation we're having, some people go, well, don't you need to sit back and watch a movie, like lights off, big screen? Others will be perfectly happy watching it tiny screen, bit by bit, here and there, or just watching YouTube shorts of little bits and pieces. So quality starts getting very subjective. It's very individualistic. The idea of relevance can't really be debated. Like, if you deem something to be relevant to you, you'll consider it. If you don't deem something to be relevant to you, you won't consider it. It's gotcha. Well, maybe then, Tim, just to bring this back, so you know about decision fatigue. We've kind of explained it to you. You knew about it before we explained it to you. Just with this short form content, the decisions that's required as well. So all the selecting and interactions, like, do you think decision fatigue would be happening faster in the directionality of the short form video content? So like versus the social versus the interest and the engagement required. Like, because we always assume that these people are making hundreds and thousands of decisions an hour, maybe, right? Like, do you think that's true? Is this something that is decision fatigue caused quicker by short form video content, or like a TikTok or YouTube Shorts?
Look, I'm not an expert in that. You are, but I would believe so. Yes, if you're gonna, you scroll through such an extraordinary amount of content. Every single time you scroll, you're making a decision. But there's also a whole ton of other decisions and stresses that can happen when you're watching something, right? Like, I guess the type of content you're actually watching. If it's very easy watching, not so stressful. If it's not easy watching, very stressful. Even things like, should I share this? Who should I share this to? When I share this to someone, am I going to add a little note with it? I wonder what they're going to think of it when I share it. So there's a whole bunch of, whether they're decisions or not, but there's a bunch of activity, subconscious, maybe conscious. And that happens every time. So you scroll through, see something, you're like, okay, I like this. But so many of the tricks that are used to capture your attention, that's first second and then beyond, are also designed to make you share and engage with that content, because they are very, very important indicators to the algorithm. This is good, and it wants to go, right? So the algorithm is a reflection of the human. Well, you like this, we're going to serve you more. Right? We're not trying to manipulate you and show you stuff you don't want to see. We're going to show you stuff you do want to see, because it's going to keep you on our platform.
And we want you to make a decision and interact with it.
Yeah, and the creator does. Now, the platform does too. The platform wants you to do these things, all sorts like that. But what they're really looking for is just the signals of, did you like it? It's a stronger signal that it was relevant to you if you've watched it, and then if I send it to you. If I say, hey, Shawn, go watch this. Or not even that. I'm just going to send it. I'm not going to send it with any. These days, it's like I send it, and I'll probably send you 5 more in the next 15 seconds. But that's an incredibly strong signal. The creator loves that, because then you've got a creator who, let's say they've got no followers, right? But they're making good content. You've seen it. You're like, hey, Tim, here you go. Here's one, this one. Every time you hit share, every time you pop in there and comment and start adding context, adding commentary to the video, all of these things are additional, like very high value signals to the algorithm. This is a good piece of creative. Cool. Let's keep sending it to people. So creators are optimizing for that, because that allows somebody who's just got a good idea to suddenly start reaching the world. And that's how so many of the best TikTokers in the world now have formed. They started with nothing. They had this ability to go out there. Now they have built following, because off the back of that, you reach so many people, a certain proportion of those people are going to start following you. But you don't actually need to. The way these algorithms work now, if I start engaging with your content, it's just going to keep serving me your content anyway. I may not realize that I don't even. There's so many people that I see created from content from every day. I probably don't follow them, but in my head I think I do, because it's a mix of people that I've chosen to follow. But then that behavior of following has been deprioritized, because the platform still understands that I like your content. I'm going to keep serving you. You keep serving me your content. I don't actually need to follow you for them to know that.
So I'd like to bring it back a little bit to this brain rot. And so, we've all kind of been there where we've been, whether it's Reddit or TikTok or YouTube Shorts or YouTube or whatever, where we've spent too long just scrolling and consuming, and you come out of it and you just feel like your brain isn't working. Can you tell us like what's happening physiologically, like in the brain, and when we're suffering from, let's say, maybe decision fatigue caused by, hours of kind of making thousands of micro decisions on social media?
Yeah, I think it's consumption isn't the problem. Like, you can watch TV or a movie, right? And you're not going to be suffering from decision fatigue. It's just the nature of content these days, or these platforms like TikTok and whatnot, is they're designed to have you make a decision, right? It's not, you're not passively involved anymore. You're actively participating in it, which can be a good thing. So content that you like, you can engage with, share with your friends, and there's good components to it. But it requires you to make a decision. Lots of decisions, as Tim said, right? You like it, you share it, you pass it, you flick, whatever. All those decisions add up, right? And even if they're mundane decision, it's still a decision that your brain is taking and making. And so if we count those up over a period of time, certainly your brain is going to hit a limit, because there's only so many quality decisions that we can make in a day, right? I mean, we've literature has shown this across a whole bunch of different vocations, and at-home moms to nurses to high-performing professionals, is if we make lots of decisions, the quality of our decisions decline, and we hit this state of decision fatigue. I think what's so interesting about this is the technology around these platforms is getting so advanced, and it's moving so quickly that we don't understand the implications for our brain. And I think the first thing to fail is going to be our decision-making quality. So if you wake up in the morning and you consume content like this and you're engaging with it, by the time you actually get to work, the quality of your decisions is going to be less than if you didn't consume it in the morning. I guess that's the takeaway from it all, is it's definitely causing decision fatigue in your brain. And it's something that we'll all suffer from when we engage with this.
Is it a physiological problem? Like, is it a physical problem in the brain? Is there a theory as to what's going on inside?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of theories that are out there. I think the one that I prescribe to, that was spoken about before, is essentially your brain's built of synapses or connections, right? So a synapse is a connection between two neurons, and in a synapse, an electrical signal is converted into a chemical signal. That's your neurotransmitter. There's hundreds in the brain, and then that chemical signal is converted back into an electrical signal. So that's the synaptic connection. So it's super simplifying it, but let's just say a single signal is a decision. So you have a decision, and that decision comes through a synapse and leads on to an outcome. The idea with decision fatigue, or the theory behind it, is this rapid decision making. There's actually a buildup of this neurotransmitter, the synapse, because the synapse doesn't have a time to reset. And so where's that release of the neurotransmitter doesn't have time to clear away before the next decision comes in. So basically you get a backlog of signals. So the infrastructure, the brain has become constrained. It can't handle the information load that it used to. And your brain will start to do things to adapt to this, right? So the highway is clogged. What can your brain now do to still have an outcome if that roadway is no longer working? And that's where we see the consequences of decision fatigue. It can be as severe as decision avoidance. So you just stop making decisions entirely, or something a little more sinister, what we call default decision making, where actually your brain will start to make conscious decisions moving more into the unconscious, and you'll rely on heuristics or things that are most safe or comfortable, just because that's what your brain is doing when it suffers from decision fatigue. So even how people consume content and the content they look at will probably change as they suffer from decision fatigue, because the decisions themselves will be affected.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for the first thing people do in the morning to open some of these platforms,
mm-hmm.
or at least early in the day. So I'd say you've got an enormous number of people who are spending substantial amounts of time consuming this kind of content early on, and then throughout the day. So how long does it take for? Is that a permanent effect? Like, once you get that build up, what's the consequence?
Yeah, so decision fatigue, from what we know it to date, even from our own work, I mean, you'll know that decision fatigue is completely gone the next morning. After a good night of sleep, you're completely restored. And clinical studies have even shown that like decision fatigue can hit by late morning. So people like loan application officers in a bank, a big study was done in the UK, and they suffer from decision fatigue by late morning, and there can be some recovery by taking a break. So going out for lunch, just taking a break from your work, going for a walk. It's been shown even in judges, just going out for a meal helps to restore some of this buildup of this neurotransmitter, if that's what's really happening in the brain. But the thing is it seems to progress throughout the course of the day. So you can have some kind of dips and sways and whatnot, but you're still declining throughout the day. And what's always so interesting, and why one of the reasons for this podcast too, is just to get people thinking about this, because if you have a finite number of quality decisions in a day, where are you spending them? And I think ultimately for Michelle and I too, a big reason for this podcast is just to get people to think about it. Just because if you're getting up, and maybe don't put too much blame on TikTok or whatnot, because it is enjoyable, but you have to think about it. They are giving your decisions to these platforms, right? And so by the end of the day, when you get home and you're with the family or whatever, maybe a big meeting at work, if you spend hours working and consuming this content and making those decisions, the quality of your decisions is going to be lower. So you have to start thinking about your decisions as a finite resource, and you ask yourself, where are you spending them? And if you kind of start to match up that with your behavior, at least in my own life, I realized there was a discrepancy. So I was spending my best decisions on things that mattered the least to me.
In summary, don't waste all of your good decisions in the morning on social media. Save it maybe for later in the day. Yeah,
well, and I think, to Tim's point too, this content is sometimes it's wonderful and it's a great escape, right? And the good part about this whole algorithm thing, which I really like to hear, is it rewards relevant content, right? So what people enjoy, you get to see more of. I guess it's just like anything else in life, it's in moderation, right? And you need to understand that there's a repercussion for doom scrolling for 3 hours, especially in the morning. There's repercussions for your brain, because the best part about TikTok, which makes it most exciting, is also the problem, right? So that engagement and that kind of addictive qualities, when you can make decisions and be involved in it, that's the best part about it. But that's also what causes this decision fatigue, right? So I think it's just understanding that, and then you can plan your day accordingly.
Yeah, look, I'd be curious to study the effect of the breaks. But if you also think about the behavior of many people these days, you get breaks, you get downtime. How you fill that time? We talked about this desire to do more in compressed periods of time. So there is, I would say there is less slow living. There is less acceptance of just being able to sit and do nothing. There is less standing at a bus stop, just staring into space. You've got your phone out and you're doing something. We've talked a lot about the short form video apps, but you also might be in your messaging platform of choice, going through the messages you have in the day, reading them. I imagine decisions will be triggered from that as well. Some of it might just be consuming things and getting updates. Other things are like, what do I think about that? Am I going to reply? What am I going to say to this? Which ones of these do I go through in which order? And it depends who you are. You might be a very high functioning individual in a high powered job, and you're being asked to make extraordinary number of really meaningful decisions every day. You might be like, I'm chilled out. I haven't got a job right now. I don't really have to be anywhere. But you're still forcing yourself you're still filling time, right? So I think it then becomes a very deliberate choice to do nothing. And I'd say probably one not many people are making. It's an easier choice to fill the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the consequence of that filled time is you are not allowing your brain to reset, you're further putting yourself into this state, then you're spending the entire day in that state. And I don't know the consequence of that right? We've talked about brain rot became a word of the year for a reason. It was heavily talked about. People were starting to see patterns, changes in behavior, changes in how they were functioning, to the point where it became a word of the year for the dictionary. So it must be a thing. But so people are aware of a change. Are they aware of the consequence? Are they aware of what's causing the change? Are they aware of how to get themselves out of the change? Likely not.
No, it's super insightful. You're totally right. We fill our time with it now. There is no downtime, right? And I think just getting people though, because you don't think of your brain as like an organ, because this is a physical limitation, right? It's just at the gym, if you did an exercise for your arms, right? The rest of the day, you're not going to fill every moment exercising your arms again, right? Like, of course, we understand that your muscle has a certain capacity and that it hits a limit, right? We don't think about that for the decisions in our brain, right? Of what the capacity of our brain is. We think it's unlimited. But the reality is there is a consequence. And I think that's just getting people aware of it, that you're totally right. I do it. Like, we fill our time with more decisions. There is no rest period. There is no break, right?
But you don't think of it as a decision. Oh, I don't. I mean, I am now. We're having this conversation. Yeah. But if I want to fill time, I feel itchy. I'm like, okay, I want to do something. I'm not very good at standing still. Yep. So if I fill time, you're either going to be like, okay, I've got stuff I have to do. You'll start working through that list. Or you might be like, okay, cool, open this. It feels like downtime. Go, I'll do that. It's almost like a reward. I'm just going to go and open Instagram for a few minutes and just scroll through some stuff and whatever it might be.
Distraction.
But I'm not thinking, yeah, but if I do that, I'm making a bunch of decisions. I'm actually thinking the opposite. Like, I want to stop making decisions for a bit. I'm going to go and chill out on Instagram. Yeah. And then what you're saying is that's doing the opposite for my brain.
You're totally right. No, and this is the disconnect is we think that taking a break is scrolling, right? Because you're relaxing and you're disengaging. But the reality is your brain doesn't know the difference between those decisions and other decisions, right? It's just still a decision, right? It's still just a physical limitation that's there. And your brain's not thinking, whether it's a scroll or whether it's an Excel spreadsheet at work, it's still a decision. So I think you nailed the disconnect, and probably that exacerbates decision fatigue at large is when people are taking breaks actually, and these types of activity are just making things worse. That's very insightful. Yeah, even my own life.
Just before we wrap up, one thing I did want to talk about a little bit was if we are the sum of our decisions, the decisions that we make and the decisions that are made for us, with the algorithm is making decisions. Algorithms are making decisions for us. How much control are we giving to these platforms? So yes, we're making the decision on what the algorithm is serving us, like what to scroll past, what to consume and everything else. But we're not necessarily making the decision on what we see. I think if you were searching for a piece of content and you receive that content, that's what you watch. But we're being served that information. There's just a lack of control that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable.
I think there's more control than we probably realize. I mean, you're right. Could be massive social engineering about the content that is shown, right? Absolutely. And there's already talk in media and there's a lot of money that can go to affect the psyche of a person, right? Which is a great question. I think for our topic, though, it's just having to make the sheer number of decisions is already dramatically affecting us outside of that platform, right? So it's 3 hours doing it means that the decisions you're making with your children are less quality afterwards, right? So there's the fact, you're totally right. There's this deeper, maybe scarier engineering component, but that even aside it's affecting our own life because we're spending our decisions there, not somewhere else.
I mean, look, let's assume there's no social engineering. It's just an algorithm that's reflecting your behavior back at you. You're informing it. So you may not be consciously deciding, am I going to tell it this or am I going to tell it that? You're giving it information. It's trying to understand you to show you what it believes to be most relevant to you. It's doing a service to you for the same reason that we like achieving more with less. We like the maximum reward, minimum effort. So if we feel that this stream of content is automated and it's incredibly relevant, then why would you not default to that as the thing to open to go, okay, I want to see content relevant to me. That platform gives me that. And it may not be conscious decision making. You might not be deciding what you're going to watch, but you're deciding to open that platform. You're like, that's where I'm going to go because I deem it to be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And you spend an extraordinary amount of time in there. You could go to any platform. You could go to Netflix and you spend time selecting what you want. And people do. We know they do. There's huge usage there. Mm-hmm. So you can choose to go to an interest-driven social short-form video platform, which is going to push stuff to you. And then you're going to choose to keep scrolling or to stop and watch. Or you could go to an on-demand platform and go through all the lists and search for things. I want something very specific. Right, so both of those are available to you. I think it's just, different moments, different times, different need cases, different cohorts of people. But it's an interesting question. I would say you probably are not in complete control of the content that gets served to you in terms of saying, I'm actively deciding I want that piece of content to be served to me. But on some level, you are deciding to watch it. You are deciding to open the platform. It's a very conscious decision to be like, I choose to engage with this type of content. I choose to spend my time with it. Yeah, you could argue that the platforms are addictive, but it's because the content's highly relevant.
It's so interesting because it's like the conspiracy theorist in me almost wants to think that all these decisions are being made for me. When it comes to like what I'm watching, that things are being censored and I'm being served things for people with this bigger agenda. And that might well be the case, but really what you're saying is actually I'm the one feeding the algorithm. My interests, what I'm watching, are more likely influencing what I'm getting back, not.
And I would argue it's the case for anything though, right? Like for any political or moral issue, like you'll seek out resources that align with your opinions anyways, right? Yeah. So even when you're trying to consume content, if you make a Google search, right, like on whatever topic, probably your search will be aligned with what your opinion on what you're looking for, right? Yeah. So like certain people of certain sways only follow certain media just because they agree with that content. But yeah, I guess Tim's point is that's happening instantly because it's just reflecting back your opinions, basically.
It's reflecting back what you're watching in the first place. So you're almost doing
scary stuff.
Which you're almost doing it to yourself. There isn't.
It's your own echo chamber, I guess. Yeah. That's an interesting point. It is just your own echo chamber. Yeah,
but that's the platform doing its job, the job that you want it to do.
Yeah,
it's giving you content most relevant to you.
Is there any situations where it can just go down a very bad path though? So for example, like we know videos that like are more controversial or violent or more like emotional, engaging, get more views, right? Like sometimes negative news is better than positive. Is there any correction there? Or it's just unhinged. Like if you start down a pathway of maybe looking at something that is I don't know, it really affects you emotionally, maybe not for the good. Will you just keep being served that content? Like, I guess it could go in a downward spiral.
I'll give you an example. Okay, so I started for some reason, I rabbit holed one day on YouTube into caving accidents and people like having these awful accidents, either caving or cave diving. And then for the longest time, and even now, I still occasionally get served these like videos,
do you watch
these
it?
Awful stories. No, I have to actively stop myself from watching because there's morbid curiosity with it. But then I feel dreadful after I've watched them. And so now when it comes up, I'm like actively having to say, don't show me this content or like scroll past it because I don't want to see this anymore. Mm-hmm. But it's all happened because one day I went on some weird, morbid rabbit hole. And now I can't.
But again, it's the algorithm giving you what things you want because it's
or what you watch, not maybe what you want.
I say think. It's an algorithm. It's not thinking. It's running a bunch of calculations, right? A bunch of probabilities and things like that. But it's you watched it. So it's like, okay, maybe you want more of this. And it's a constant test. It's machine learning. It's a constant test of learning. It's reinforcement loops, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, all sorts of different types of reinforcement loops. Mm-hmm. Yeah, ultimately it's saying, cool, you watched that. Great. I don't know what it is. It's a whole bunch of code. Yeah, I have no idea that's about caving. It's just that its digital fingerprint looks like this. Let's give you another one that looks the same. So then it's serving you. But if you stop watching it, like you say, it resets quite quickly. But every now and then it might throw it in because it's testing you. It's like, oh, but in the past you watched this. I've got some stuff that looks like it. You fit the bill of someone that might want to watch this stuff. Let's try. And if you choose to watch it again, then maybe it ramps back up again. You don't, it starts going down. If you ever get to an extreme point on that, you can, like most of these platforms allow you to reset.
Start from the beginning. Yeah.
Your pages. So
because you drive by a car accident, everybody looks, right? So the algorithm would be like, wow,
look, that's also a hard wiring. That's a different topic, but like humans are kind of wired to kind of focus on negatives, remember negative experiences more than positive experiences. There's a morbid curiosity. There's a different kind of psychology around that, and when it comes to certain negative emotions and experiences and kind of curiosity. So yeah, I'm sure that is true that many people have had their version of that experience, but largely speaking, I think all that algorithm is trying to do is reflect back at you what it thinks you want to watch. And if you continue to engage with it, you're reinforcing that you do want to watch it. So you got it right.
So you need to flick faster when you see the caving videos.
You need to not let your kids watch Blippi on your YouTube account. Yes. Because that will come back to haunt you.
It learns fast. You can train it fast.
Like, this is such an interesting conversation. I feel like we could have had another hour kind of digging into it. And,
oh, totally. You should get a fourth chair here one day with the psychologist too. Yes. And then we can, yeah.
No, really, really, really interesting stuff. Thank you so much, Tim, for coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, hugely appreciate it. This is such a fascinating topic, and you're at the cutting edge of all this. And I bet you, if we had this, podcast in 2 weeks, you'll have a new piece of information. I think that's why it's so exciting, is it changes so quickly. And a guy like you is just at the edge of this all, which is fascinating.
Thank you. Trying to be.
Well, trying to be one step ahead of the algorithms to feed it content that's going to blow people's minds and keep them hooked. Just evil. It sounds evil, doesn't it? Sorry.
Giving people what they want.
And to all of our listeners, just remember you have the power to take back control of your digital experience. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe to Decisions That Count. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. And please just leave your comments. If you've got any questions for Tim, please add them in the comments below, and we'll make sure he responds. And we'll link to his LinkedIn below if you would like to connect directly with him. So in the meantime, please make every decision count.
Thank you so much.